Hey there, it's Brenda Meller with Meller Marketing. I was watching our countdown ticker. I was actually taking a little video of it because it's a newer feature that StreamYard is offering. And guys, I am so excited today because I've got a very special guest with me today, Pam Lippitt. Hey Pam, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Doing good. I am excited the day is finally here. I remember it feels like it was months ago when I reached out to you and I said, hey, do you want to chat on LinkedIn Live sometime? But here we are. Gosh, August 19th. That went by quickly.
I know I have someone who's scheduled out for something for September 2nd. And when he did it, I was like, well, that's just another world. We're all going to be good by then. Ha ha.
You never know. Maybe we will be. So before we get into the conversation today, I want to take a moment and just welcome those who may be watching us, whether you're watching on LinkedIn, Facebook, or on YouTube. We're broadcasting to 3 networks right now. I would love it if you could please leave a comment below and let us know where you're watching from. Are you, we're all at home right now pretty much, right, Pam? So are you in your home office? Are you at the kitchen table? Are you sitting out on the back deck? Where are you watching from? And then what city or state are you watching from as well? And I'm in my home office here in Fraser, Michigan, which is in Macomb County, Michigan, a suburb of Metro Detroit. Pam, where are you at today?
I'm actually in my den. As you can tell, I like to read. So when I moved into this condo, my goal was a wall of books. And that is what I have, books and photos. That's me.
I love it. And when we first came on, I said, is that one of those virtual backgrounds? Because it looks like it, like the bookshelf, it looks really cool, like that, one of those virtual. And Pam's like, no, that's my bookshelf. So I love it. I'm a reader. Are you the kind of person, Pam, do you reread books after you've read them once, or do you just kind of keep them on the shelf after that?
Well, so I'll give a plug to Bookstock, which didn't happen this year, but is the largest retailer of books, and all the money they make goes back to literacy programs in Southeast Michigan. So my paperbacks and things like that, I give away because the reality is I'm never going to read a Daniel Steele again or whoever, but hardcover books I keep. Yeah, remember her? But
I used to read her I had like a bookshelf of all of them. And then she was like the kind of author you could read it again sometimes too, right?
Right. I have a cousin who never forgets a plot of all those kind of books, and it makes me kind of crazy because remembers them. But my favorite books I reread, and I'm lucky enough that every few years I travel to Israel, and there are a couple books that I always reread a historical book about Israel, historical fiction, before I go to Israel.
Very nice.
It just like sets my mood and gets me in the space. So
that's awesome.
That's what
we're gonna jump into the conversation here in just a moment. And I see a lot of people are commenting. So it looks like I got my live stream back on LinkedIn. Yesterday was down, but today it's definitely back up. So I'll continue to show your comments. If you're watching, continue to comment below and let us know where you're watching from. We're gonna be talking today about making your presentation stand out from the crowd. So I am very excited to hear Pam's tips because I do a lot of presentations, in person, now virtual. And I guess we have a little bit of a similarity in our background there, Pam, and our desire to make presentations better. So I am looking forward to the topic. Before we jump into that conversation though, Pam, why don't you take a few minutes, tell people a little bit about yourself, your background, and then we'll jump into that conversation.
Well, I guess this has kind of followed me my whole life. No matter what I've done, I've used my communications degree. I think it sets out, and I still know, like, come up in my mind that I remember learning in class, and it still affects me. So I try to give that knowledge to other people. So presentations take all sorts of forms. I work a lot with so I've owned a direct mailing company for about 30 years. That kind of went away for the most part about 2010. And then I did some work in the nonprofit world, which I really liked. At this point, I'm kind of taking all that knowledge and trying to give it back to other people. When I grew up, I want to be a consultant, so I guess I grew up. So,
there you go. And that's not one of the things that kids say, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? A fireman, a teacher, a consultant.
have the best schedules and make most money. I figured out the first part, not the second part. So we're still getting there. No, but I like working with small businesses and with startups. And it's so important, especially for startups. They're making presentations all the time, whether it's for a dollar, program to get some kind of extra money, or they're pitching to investors, or they're pitching to a company. So I was once with a company at one of the tier 1 auto suppliers. And when we left, it was a young guy. And when we left, he said, "How was it?" And so my stock answer always is, "Oh, it was great." And he said to me, "No, really, I actually am asking."
Yeah.
And it was a very good presentation, but I helped him reorder it.
Okay.
And once he reordered the same information, you could tell the difference in the room.
Okay.
And that's what makes the difference. I'm a firm believer, if you can take someone else with you who knows you, their job is watching the crowd and kind of giving you like the heads up. Because it's really hard to keep track of the crowd and what their behavior is if you're the presenter.
That's very true, because your focus is on delivering, not watching, right?
Right. So I'm always in the back of the room watching, how many people are picking up their phones, or how many people are kind of wandering. And so you refine your presentation based on that, whether it's the time you're spending on a section. You kind of have to, a presentation should be ever evolving. It's kind of like a resume, you got to meet the crowd you're with.
Yeah. So is this what you do for a living now, Pam? You're a consultant. You're helping people with presentations. Is kind of your area of focus right now?
That's my area of focus. Just making sure that they're getting the best they can get. So I will say it's a bit challenging during this time because I love to network and we're just not out and about. So it's a little bit harder, but I'm trying to do as much as I can now so that when we get to real life, and we will get to real life, it will be, oh, we've been connected on LinkedIn or connected somewhere. Now we get to meet in real life, as opposed to a cold introduction at that point.
Good point. And on that note, Pam, you and I'm trying to remember, I think we met in person briefly a while back, but then we really have been doing more networking online. I think I did a presentation or a webinar. You came in and I think you did some of my webinar trainings as well. So can you refresh my memory? Do you remember where it was we first met?
It was actually at Tech Town, and I'm actually a mentor, a marketing and a mentor at Tech Town. And I think it was someone else's presentation on LinkedIn. And then we said hello at the end of the presentation. I was impressed with what you had to say. And we said, "Oh, we'll get together." And then we will get together.
Yeah, we will.
And it's funny. You've been so valuable to the work I'm doing and the exposure I'm getting. And a number of people have actually said to me, "Well, she's a good friend of yours. That's why she's promoting you so much." And so I have to explain, no, we really, have never met in real life. So and we're making the best of the situation, I guess.
We are, but I love shining the spotlight on other people, and especially people that I feel have a lot of gifts and talents to bring to the world, or who are really open to learning, and, whether it's through the webinars or lives or things that I do, that engage with me. I mean, I like to talk back to people who like to talk with me, not selling to me, but with me, let's have conversations and have dialogue. And you and I, we are kindred spirits because we are both in this marketing world. We're both Metro Detroiters. So we have a lot of things in common, and we both practice good, engagement techniques online, which makes it appear, oh, you guys are the best of friends. You've known each other forever. Well, no, we really haven't known each other that long, but we have, we've surrounded ourselves with other positive people, and we build each other up. We try to support each other. So with that, Pam, what I'd like to do is let's move into the conversation now, and let's give some folks some tips on making your presentation stand out from the crowd. So maybe starting off, why is it important that their presentations are standing out? Why can't they just blend in and just have an okay presentation?
So the main thing that the audience is looking for is what makes you unique, right? Because everybody can have the same widget. It's, the old advice from, oh, thank you, Kathy. The old advice from, build a better mousetrap. Well, if you just go in with a mousetrap, everyone's going to think it's the same. But if your mousetrap really is different, especially in the IoT world, the Internet of Things and cybersecurity and automotive, I learned many years ago that cars have 200 to 300 computers in them, and they're all open ports for sneaky people to get in.
Yeah.
So if you're not going into a presentation with a tier 1 support or a car company, an OEM, if you're not starting with hello, here I am, pay attention,
right,
you've lost them, because these are people and investors too who hear presentations all day long.
Mm-hmm.
So what makes you unique? What makes your idea better than everything else that they for the last 2 months? And then keep hitting home on that.
So talk to us too about,
and then the other thing,
we went from in person, Pam, to virtual. So does that concept still apply? Is that even more important to come out with a bang now, or is it similar?
Well, I think now a little bit is in your writing, and I help people with that. I can help people with that too, so that by the time you get to the Zoom, to the event, they've already chosen to listen to you. So your intro to that has to be really important. It's equally important, because at this point, the presentation is the details. Mm-hmm. I think it used to be you could get in based on a recommendation, right. And I've been lucky enough to know enough people that I can get people in places, right? Okay. But they gotta, so in the old days, so my get people in was getting people physically in the door.
Yeah.
Now there's a lot more steps before someone will take the time to meet with you virtually. Just the nature of the beast. But but it's slowly moving. So the other thing that I think is important, like I have a piece of paper with me that's got my notes on it. Yeah. But that's what it's got, notes. I haven't even looked at it. My style, always studying in school, whatever, is if you write it down, you remember it. Mm-hmm. And so while this is written and in my lap, I'm not really going to look at it. It's my tool. Everybody has their own tool, but you have to know your style, and you have to, practice. Yeah. Practice in front of the mirror, practice in front, now we've got the proverbial mirror in front of us that we practice in front of, right?
Right.
Just turn on your Zoom and record yourself. It's even better these days. So, so it's those kind of tips. It's tips like, whenever I speak, I never speak from a text. I speak from bullet points or, not like headlines. I've never spoke in my whole life. I've never spoken from a written word.
It's not like a teleprompter, but you're more just, you're talking, you're going on, because you know what it is. You know what you want to say. You know the points you want to make. Sometimes you need that bulleted list as like a trigger to what is the thought I want to make on this slide, but you don't need it scripted, right?
No. Not only do you not need it scripted, I will say the only thing I will back off from that is, though I don't always use it, I always write out my opening and closing paragraph.
Oh, very nice. Okay.
And practice it. Because I need to know that I'm starting off without any really on track where I want to get to, and I'm closing on track. So there's this old adage, I don't know if you've heard this, the ABCs of, speaking or of sales, always be closing. Mm-hmm. So it's that. I'm always going to get to that close, but I'm always going to make sure it has an impact. So,
yeah, I like it. And I wrote this. I'm going to drop little tips as you're saying them here because this is going to help. When you write it down, you remember. My kind of versioning of that, if you will, Pam, is I type things out or put things on screen. I'm typing them out to remember. So this is going to help for me. I like this tip right here because sometimes as a presenter, we don't think through that. What am I going to say to start off, and what do I need to say to close? But I like how you script that out, and it almost should be a little bit of a bookend, right? Like there should be some similarities because you're going to tell them what you're going to tell them, and then at the end you tell them what you told them, right? So you're bringing that together. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. But and I think that most of us, when we prepare a presentation, we're really preparing the guts. Mm-hmm. We never seem to prepare the opening.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Right? We're so concentrating on what we need to tell them, but we don't introduce what we need to tell them. Mm-hmm. And people need that introduction so that they kind of sit up and wait for it.
Yeah.
The other thing that kind of drives me crazy is the written out slide deck where someone just reads to me.
Yeah.
I just turn off. If you're not, so I really believe in the bullet pointed three, and I'm a lefty, so I'm an odd number person anyway, but 3 to 5 bullet points at the most per page.
Okay.
Then just move on to the next slide because people will look up to pay attention to the next slide, right? If you've got all this information that you're just reading to them, send it to me and I'll stay home. Thank you very much. And also you need to move it through, and it also I think helps you edit because you know how many slides the audience will handle.
Do you know what the average amount of time is that you should spend per slide? And I once heard, a minute to 3 minutes per slide, depending on what you have, because sometimes you're loading graphics fast and you're navigating through. But do you have any thoughts on that? How much time should you estimate per slide in terms of total duration of the presentation?
No, I really, it depends on the industry. It depends if you're dealing with like technical information as opposed to just reading bullet points. So if you're putting something technical up, you probably need to spend more time. I also don't mind when people ask questions throughout a presentation. I like it better because it breaks up the monotony and brings other people in the room. Now you're pixelating all over the place. I was doing it earlier. But you break up that and bring other people into the mix. So it's hard to kind of know.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You're 20 minutes, so you better figure out, backwards where you want to spend your time.
And then I also heard you say practice, because you do want to practice your timing, practice what you're saying on the slides, and it also helps you to estimate, what is the duration. And if you will have some audience participation, if it's a 30-minute presentation, maybe you need to make it a 20-minute presentation to allow for 10 minutes for Q&A, right?
Right. So, and that's about people's sitting time. But I once I was working with a president, and he wanted to write his own speech. And literally his speech was supposed to be 5 minutes, right? So I said, okay, let's practice it once, because I knew this was going to be a disaster. So he did the whole thing. And then I said to him, okay. And it was someone I got along with. So it was not like a confrontational thing or anything. But I said to him, okay, how long do you think that was? He said, well, I think I went over a little. So I think it was about 12 minutes.
Okay.
And I said, you just spoke for 28 minutes.
Wow. And he thought it was 12?
And he thought it was 12.
And you were trying to get it to 5?
I was trying to get it between 5 and 10. So, we said, okay, what I once worked with someone who was very precise, and she taught me a big lesson that I still use, especially in writing. Don't use 3 words when you can use 1. Find 1 word to replace 3, and you can always do it. So I've become very specific with my words. I always have been anyway. It's funny. I'll tell you a funny story if we have a minute. Right after college, I worked with a youth group. And for 6 years, about, I don't know, I had a board of 16 to 18-year-olds, about 35 people. And the first year, the first probably convention, some kids swore at me. Like, I was right out of college. I could swear with the truckers, right? So he swore at me, and I just looked at him. I said, you know what? That is like the laziest thing I've ever heard. Pick your words. If you swear at me, you're never going to get anywhere with me. And let's just, figure it out.
Right.
I never said that again.
Yeah.
However, that conversation followed me for 6 years. And if a kid started to swear at me, another kid would say, don't swear at her. You're never going to get what you want.
Oh,
and I never said it a second time.
Okay. That's good. So it followed you around. That's a good lesson.
But it's words. I love words. I love learning new words. I love, when someone uses educated words. There are some things, there are some sentences that get like overused. I try my very, very best.
Unprecedented times we were in. Unprecedented. I'm like, I want to go back to the precedented times right now because I'm so sick of the word unprecedented.
And I'm sick of the word amazing. But no, these are precedented times. When they first started, I read everything I could about the 1918 pandemic and what people did to get over it or not get over it, which is why it was so bad in 1919. And oh, by the way, we're doing the exact same thing. We're not doing anything different. They wore masks, and then when things opened up, everybody went out and about, and then twice as many people died the next year.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
So you would think we would, have learned something.
Yeah. I want to go back to a previous point you made before we move on to your next tip, Pam. You were talking about using more concise words. And one of the tips I at one point in my career, I was kind of like a presentation. What did I call myself? Like a PowerPoint guru. It's on my LinkedIn profile. I got to look up the word. But it was like a PowerPoint expert because I was doing presentations and proposals all the time. And we would have to take, the sales guy would give us his deck, and then we'd have to like slice it and dice it and add visuals and cut out text. And we would start with whatever he gave us, and then we would cut the amount of words in half and then cut them in half again. So we got to the point we were really, really good at this. And even like now I do this with LinkedIn profiles. If it feels too wordy, how can we reduce what you're saying from a really long sentence to a quick sound bite? And in marketing terms, I've heard of the phrase short, snackable chunks of copy. Short, snackable chunks of copy, not like 12 sentence paragraphs that are in there. But when you were talking about being more concise, it just reminded me of that, approach of starting with it, cutting it in half and cutting it in half again. You can get really, really specific and focused on your message that way.
It's interesting. I will admit, I'm a last minute person. I've always been the person who writes, my story, my assignment the night before. It's just me, but not with a presentation because I always have to put down and sleep on it. Yeah. And look at it the next day. I find, you get too tired and you've got to leave yourself time to review. I usually, something comes to me at 1 a.m. I do have a pad of paper next to me that cleans things up, that makes you look at with fresh eyes, I guess. My mom was a sewer, and she was also a night owl, and she would always lay out a pattern at night, but never cut it till the next day.
Interesting.
And I always asked her why. She said, I don't know. By the time I lay it out and I've got it all organized, I just need to rest and then look at it again in the morning. And I think that's something.
It's your mind thinks on it. If you can look at the table behind me, I don't know if you guys can see this over here. I've got a jigsaw puzzle set up, and this is actually probably an 8-foot long folding table. I love doing jigsaw puzzles, but this is a really hard pattern. So I have it set out on the table, and I'll walk by and look at the patterns. And then when I do sit down and start to work on the puzzle, I feel like my subconscious has been thinking about where the pieces go. And maybe that's the same thing your mom was doing, laying out the pattern. You're thinking about where things go in the making whatever she's making. I mean, is it the same way with a presentation, Pam? Do you recommend people kind of do the outline first and then, put into the detail, or what's the process you recommend for people on that building?
That's how I work. I usually figure out an outline. And, I want to cover these are the 4 topics I have to cover. This is the order. And then I go back and figure it out. Sometimes when we get to the end of that, I might switch, paragraph, thought 2 and thought 3. Right. But I am thinking in an outline fashion. It's, you got to be able to grab people. You've just got to be able to hold attention. You also have to be able to read a room.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You have to know if people's eyes are wandering, and you have to be able to have your material so embedded in your head that it's kind of logical, so that if you need to skip something, what you need to skip.
Okay.
And it could be that in your bullet points, 3 of the 5 are highlighted, or 2 of the 5 are highlighted, so that if you're running long, you can make those kind of changes and be on the fly. And I think that's what people appreciate. Someone once sent me, we were going to a big tier 1 meeting. And I always asked for the slide deck in advance, mostly because, especially if someone was coming from overseas, I wanted it on my computer. I didn't want to abuse my ask by my presenter not being ready. So he sent me a 30 slide deck. And I said, seriously, 6, 8, what are you doing? Yeah. And he said, I'll flip through it from page 1 to page 8. I know I can do that. And I said to him, you need to realize what amazing opportunity you have.
Yeah.
And you need to take the time to prepare. I mean, and especially with a deck, all you need to do is copy it and get rid of those other slides. Yeah. It's not that much work. So you can have one deck that's your internal deck that's got everything.
Okay.
And then based on the presentation, pull out which slides you need, but never skip. I'm going to skip 5 slides ahead. Yeah. I feel my audience is worth my effort.
So you made me think of something too, Pam. Most people, when we talk about presentations, we're all kind of thinking PowerPoint, or maybe it's a PowerPoint converted into a PDF, or a Google, whatever the Google version of it is, a PowerPoint, converted. But what about, other presentation formats like Prezi, if you've heard of that, where it's you navigate, expand in and drill out. What are your thoughts on different presentation formats other than just a static slide deck?
Well, first of all, I've used Prezi and I love it, but you have to be very, very careful. Remember in the beginning of slide decks, how things would pop in and out and bounce at you and do all those things? It's the same with Prezi. You can get really overwhelmed with the cuteness of it. Yeah. And some people get really dizzy when things fly in and out at them. Yeah. So I have used it, and I've used it successfully, but you have to use it sparingly. Okay. I will say, I think for people who know Josh Linkner, he may be the best Prezi guy out there. And I also like new technology because people pay attention. Yeah. I don't think they have any examples on their homepage, but I'm popping the link on, and I think you can do it for free up to a certain length, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember how they make their model available here. Maybe they changed their model. It did not used to be free, which was, why I don't use it. So.
You know what? That's probably because I think when I had access to it, I worked for an educational institution, and we had a license as an educator for the free version of it. But I completely agree with you, Pam. It was the same, it was kind of like PowerPoint on steroids when people started doing Prezis, because they would have them build, and it was very visually interesting, but it can be very dizzying. And then also what I found is when some people were using Prezis, the animation would take over the focal point of the message. And it was you're impressed by it, but then you're also a little distracted by it. And then you can't even follow along because you're trying to your mind, I think, is trying to figure out how is this going to build. And,
Right.
and if it's repetitive or if it's irritating or annoying, you start to tune out the presentation, and then you're having a hard time remembering the message that's being shared with you, right?
Right. So that's why I said that Josh is the king of those.
Yeah.
Because it's simple, and he doesn't feel like he has to like throw every bell and whistle at Prezi. And first of all, he does enough of them that each one can be unique. And so that's fun. But you've got to know your audience. You have to know the age of your audience, the technical knowledge of your audience to figure out how to do that.
Yeah. And I want to try to move us now, Pam, into some Q&A, and I've been dropping some comments from the audience up on screen. But anybody who's watching here today, if you're struggling with how to make your presentations more memorable, more impactful, whether your business goal is to secure, funding for your business, or to secure new pieces of business, or if you're just presenting in a webinar format, if you have questions about how to make your presentations better, drop your questions right now. We got an expert. Oh, this way. I got to point my fingers. It's in reverse of where I see. We got an expert right here. Pam can help you with your questions. And if you have any additional tips, resources, techniques that you'd like to share with the audience, drop those in the comments, and I'll pull you up on screen as we're going here. And I see a few folks that are, echoing the things that we've said. And Deborah just said, a minute ago, she said, prefer to that presentation, a day before, review it with a fresh set of eyes. Any thoughts on that, Pam?
No, I think I said that I always try and go to sleep and then look at it the next day. If it's something really important, really important, I also try and find a friend, acquaintance, whatever, someone that I'm not talking to about this, and show it to them and do it with them, and make sure that it's not just, sometimes we know the stuff so well that we just assume people are following along with us.
Right.
But
and here's another point. Lori is saying it's got to look visually professional, not boring. And I feel like sometimes when you're presenting your own material, to that point, you get bored with looking at it all the time, but you might be like, it's okay. Well, thoughts on that?
I will say to that, hey, Bloom, because Lori is someone I met and has become a great friend. A real in-life friend. But we met when I owned the direct mailing company, and she was doing the artwork for Meller. She's a great graphic designer. I interviewed her. You should interview her. She's great.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah. So I think that, and piece of paper I held up was the notes I gave her to do my one pager a couple months ago. But so it's absolutely
okay.
Presentation.
Good. And I see the person who's leaving the comment, you can see it says LinkedIn user. So this person, you either have your privacy settings a little bit more locked down, or you're not sharing your LinkedIn profile and post publicly. It's a StreamYard. It's kind of putting a gray avatar here in place because you can't see public. If you need help on how to make yourself more public, let me know. I can help you with that. But there's a book that person, I hadn't heard of that, Presentation Patterns by Ford, McCullough, and Shuda. And I do have another question, and I'm curious your response to this, Pam, and I'll weigh in on this too. Do you share your slide deck? And when you're presenting virtually, are you recording your presentations and then sharing the link to the playback and to the slide deck for those who register? What are your thoughts there?
Well, absolutely. The things I've been doing, I'm trying to put spotlights on small businesses, people who are trying to make it through this time. I created, the name of my company is Hill Street Group. Have we said that at all? The Hill Street Group?
I'm going to pull up your website right now as you're talking about that.
Yeah. So I created a Hill Street Group YouTube page because they're so big. And so we can... anyone can look at the presentations.
Okay. So, thoughts there on, and
that's one of Lori Bloom's designs.
Okay.
Up there.
Oh, on your page?
Yes, that's kind of the top of all my stuff. Your presenter yesterday talked about word clouds. Yeah. So I sent her the generic word cloud that word cloud did, and then she made it look a lot nicer.
Very nice,
So
Lori.
that's the top of my buck slip.
Ah, very nice. I like it. And I really like it because you have a nice brand color palette with there. It's the nice bold green with a blue it's a little bit of a different color blue than a royal blue. And I really like the color palette that you've got, the white, blue, green, and it's very consistent across your social media platform. So kudos to you and to Lori on that. So I mean, I've heard that question, and I'm going to pop the question back up on screen again. Do you share your slide deck? Do you record them and share the link for those who register? Mindy, here's my advice for you: is if you're doing a free webinar, you're not charging people, you're not benefiting monetarily from the webinar, don't give away everything. You know, that's a thing, a lesson I've learned. And Pam, I see you nodding. You know, don't give away everything. Give them some highlights, enough nuggets that they feel like they've gotten some substance out of the presentation, but don't give away everything. And then at the end of the presentation, I do a call to action. Hey, if you want to work with me individually or book me to train your team, or, you know, there's other options, then you get more of what I've just shared with you. And then I'm not afraid to share that slide deck because I haven't given away too much of my secret sauce. And same thing on the recording. I don't mind sharing it if you want to play it back. You know, sometimes I make them unlisted, sometimes I make them public. But as long as I'm thinking in terms of the content, I'm not giving everything away. If you're paying for me for team training or something like that, I'm going to give you more substance, but you're paying for me. So I don't mind sharing the slide deck and the recording for you because you already paid for it, right? Do you agree with that approach, Pam, or what are your thoughts there?
I definitely agree. And the other thing is, if you're being paid to do something, I know you and I know me, we're going to do extra work.
Right.
Because we're going to review their materials ahead of the game.
Right.
And it's going to be very personalized.
Yeah.
So while things can be, you know, this conversation is generic.
Yeah.
But, you know, when you're working with a company, it's much more personalized and much more of a one-on-one or one-on-team approach. So you get a lot more out of it.
Yeah.
And there's time to answer questions more. There I am.
There you go. So, so as we start to kind of wrap the conversation here for today, Pam, I mean, we've given people some really good nuggets here today on making your presentation stand out from the crowd. You've given some really great presentation tips for people. If folks that are watching today need more information, need more help on their presentations, can they hire you? Can they book you on a project basis or?
Yeah, project based is great. I also do some, continual consulting work for companies. If you're part of an incubator like TechTown or Ann Arbor Spark, there's money available from the state through the SBIR loans or grants that if you're like a technology company, you can access those grants and then pay me for the marketing piece. So a lot of that closed up with the not in person kind of things, but those are great ways for startups to find some extra money to get help. They can not only hire me, they can use that money for an attorney, for an accountant, to really build around their business. I often say I once saw a presentation that was so interesting. The speaker talked to the floor.
Wow.
He talked like this the whole time.
Are you being sarcastic or are you being serious?
I'm being totally honest. It was early in the morning and I get that, and I don't know where he was the night before, but he literally talked to the floor. And I always said, if you happen to be laying on the floor under him, it was a great presentation, but that's not what you should be doing. So that's what I help with.
Yeah. All right. Good to know. And as we start to wrap here today, Pam, any final comments you'd like to share on making your presentations memorable? Shout outs you want to give? Anything else we should know about you or your business, or how to get a hold of you?
Well, you can get a hold of me through my website or through LinkedIn for sure. I'm always watching that and responding. Don't send me a sales pitch as your first intro because I probably will never really be happy with you. Happened to me the other day. It happens all the time, but it happened in an email, which really got my dander up, as they say. And so, it's just a matter of a look. And I changed my for banner.
Yeah.
I know. I follow your tips. I'll tell you, I actually decided to use about half of my stimulus check for actually improving my business.
That's awesome.
So I joined a chamber and I took some of your classes, and they were worth every penny of it. So that's my recommendation to people. Figure out what you can afford, what you need to do, be a lifelong learner, and keep moving ahead.
Awesome. And I put Pam's profile, her URL is kind of down below on the screen here. When you visit her profile and you invite her to connect, include a personal note. And I'm going to repeat what she said. Don't pitch her. Don't pitch anybody. Don't put a sales message in your invitation. And even at that rate, don't do it in the follow-up note as soon as they accept either. It's like such a big turnoff when you find like the only reason people want to connect to you is to sell to you. That's great. But let's get to know people first. And it's similar to a presentation. You want to kind of earn people. You want to earn their trust. You want to get to know them a little bit and then figure out if there's a good opportunity for the working relationship. It's the same with your LinkedIn invitation. So invite her. I got to point the other way. Invite Pam to connect with you. Mention the presentation. And if there's something that was particularly helpful as a tip, I would love it if you guys could please comment before you leave this presentation. And I'm going to ask you for one other thing too, which is as soon as you leave the presentation to please click to share the video. Share it with somebody in your network who could benefit from these awesome, amazing tips that Pam shared with you today on making your presentation memorable. And I also want to encourage all of you, if you could please go to mellermarketing.com/subscribe, and you can be added to my VIP email list where I send out LinkedIn strategy tips as well as upcoming notes about my presentations, of which I'm going to be incorporating some of Pam's tips. And Pam, I have to say I'm guilty of sometimes putting too many bullets on a slide. And I know I have a couple presentations coming up and I'm going to probably split them out. So I have no more than like maybe 3 or 4 bullets. I think you said 3 to 5. So I'm going to try to get to that 3 to 5. And I'm going to remember my friend Pam told me 3 to 5 bullets, and I'm going to try to split out that information. So thank you so much for that.
Oh, no problem.
All right, Pam.
This
well, it was
great.
A delight. It was a great delight talking to you today. And I look forward to the day when we can meet each other in person again. Maybe we can have a coffee at Tech Town or meet up elsewhere. But it's just been a delight following you and supporting your business, and really just want to thank you for sharing your insights again today.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. All right, guys. Well, stay safe and stay healthy out there. Again, comment before you leave. Let Pam know if you thought she was amazing. I thought she was. You can use awesome, phenomenal, inspiring. Pick out your adjective. There you go. Leave an adjective below and tell us what you thought of the conversation here today. And we will see you online again soon. Take care, everybody. Thanks again for watching.
Bye-bye.